The highway stretches like a darkened concert hall, where the air itself vibrates with unspoken thunder. Before the first crash of cymbals, feel the instruments tuning in silence. The low, resonant hum of diesel hearts, the faint metallic whisper of tires kissing asphalt, the distant sigh of wind slipping over chrome. Here power sleeps in plain sight, coiled, patient, inevitable. Mass, the weight of authority. Picture the truck as a cathedral of steel on wheels, 80,000 pounds of iron bones, whether liquid cargo sloshing like a restless ocean inside its belly, or dirt, fuel tanks brimming with liquid fire. It rolls forward not with malice, but with the indifferent gravity of a glacier. Beside it, the sedan is a paper lantern, 4,000 pounds of aluminum skin and fragile glass, a fragile question drifting in the giant's wake. This is momentum in repose, the quiet promise that once awakened, nothing short of the earth itself can negotiate its path.